Friends, before the program begins, the chairman of the National Spiritual Assembly of the United States, Judge James Nelson, has been asked to read a message of greeting received from the President of the United States, President George Bush. He will then introduce the Honorable David Dinkins, Mayor of the New York City. Judge James Nelson.
Friends, before the formal opening of the program, it is fitting that there be greetings. And in this case, greetings which go far beyond just the welcome to these shores for those who have traveled so far to get here. In the larger sense, we ought to greet each other because we are, each and every one of us, co-inheritors of this moment. Each and every one, those in this hall and those who will be watching across the globe, are heirs to the message of Baha'u'llah, to the exemplar of his faith, to the heroes, the martyrs, the teachers, and the souls who have brought us to this moment. In that sense, we greet each other today. The effect and purpose of this meeting is not lost upon any part of the world, and certainly not upon the United States of America. I am pleased now to read the following letter from the President of the United States. I am pleased to send greetings to the American members of the Baha'i community and to the millions of Baha'is around the world as you mark the 100th anniversary of the passing of Baha'u'llah, the prophet founder of your faith. As many of you gather in New York for your World Congress, or meet in other places of joyful celebration, I know that you are mindful of fellow believers who are being denied the religious freedom and tolerance that are central to Baha'i teachings. In numerous statements and congressional resolutions, the United States has repeatedly expressed the hope that Baha'is in Iran, the birthplace of your faith, will be permitted to practice their religion as guaranteed by the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Baha'i teachings on religious tolerance, the unity of mankind, the elimination of prejudice, equality of the sexes, and universal peace embody principles that all people of goodwill admire and support. As you salute the life and writings of Baha'u'llah, I join with you in praying that we may see the realization of these fundamental principles in every land. You have my best wishes for a meaningful celebration. George Bush. The the city of New York is known to all of us as a special place. I am delighted to introduce to you the Honorable David Dinkins, Mayor of the City of New York.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you so much. Thank you, Judge James Nelson, and welcome to our city. A quarter of a century ago, the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "The next thing we must be concerned about if we are to have peace on earth and goodwill toward men is the non-violent affirmation of the sacredness of all human life. Every man is somebody because he is a child of God." New York is a city that has taken that advice to heart. Yes, we are the international capital of commerce, culture, and communication. And yes, as the home of our medias, the nation's media, we offer the potential of national coverage for events that take place here, as you saw perhaps during the very successful Democratic National Convention we hosted this summer. But our city is also a cultural crossroads and a center of tolerance, a gorgeous mosaic of 178 different ethnic groups, and the proud home of the United Nations. We welcomed 1 million new immigrants during the 1980s, and some 30% of our population is foreign-born. This diversity is what makes New York special. New York has relished the polyglot, multi-ethnic nature of our city. We are pleased that you have chosen New York as a venue for the Bahá'í World Congress celebrating racial and ethnic unity. Although we are not yet free of all racial and ethnic problems, New York ranks as one of the most tolerant towns in the world. There is no excuse for official intolerance, whether in the form of outright persecution of those of a different faith or by placing a bounty on the head of a writer of fiction. It is my hope that the spirit of tolerance and respect that we continue to establish in New York will someday, somehow be mirrored throughout the world. And it is in that spirit that I once again welcome you to New York. To mark this occasion, I have issued an official mayoral proclamation. The text reads as follows. Office of the Mayor, City of New York, Proclamation. Whereas the international community of Baha'i is holding the Baha'i World Congress celebrating racial and ethnic unity at the Jacob Javits Center for the 23rd through the 26th of November, and whereas more than 30,000 Baha'is from 180 countries are attending this important Congress in our city, the largest and most diverse gathering in the faith's 148-year history, and whereas founded by Baha'u'llah in Iran in 1844, today the Bahá'í Faith has members in almost every country. The Bahá'í Faith emphasizes the unity and equality of all people and teaches that there should be no barriers to this unity. The founder's son, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, visited New York City in 1912, calling it the City of the Covenant. And whereas our city has long had a wonderfully diverse population, for centuries, people from countries throughout the world have come here to escape persecution and to build new lives for themselves and their families. We welcome the members of the Bahá'í Faith and join them in their wish for peace and unity among all the peoples of the earth. Now, therefore, I, David N. Dinkins, Mayor of the City of New York, in recognition of this important gathering in our city, do hereby proclaim Monday, November 23rd, 1992, in the city of New York as Bahá'í World Congress Day.
Thank you very much, Mayor Dinkins. You mentioned in your proclamation the visit in 1912 of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, the son of the founder of the Bahá'í Faith. At the time of his visit, there was an invocation revealed for the city of New York that specializes this city and makes it for the Baha'is a unique and potential, a place of potential great benefit to the world. I would like to present to the city, through you now, Mayor Dinkins, a copy of that invocation.
I am so grateful. I won't read it all, but the heading is, "Bless Thou, O King of Kings, the City of New York." Well, God bless all of you. Thank you so much.
Bless thou, O King of Kings, the city of New York. Cause the friends there to be kind to one another. Purify their souls and make their hearts to be free and detached. Illumine the world of their consciousness. Exhilarate their spirits and bestow celestial power and confirmation upon them. Establish there a heavenly realm, so that the city of Baha may prosper and New York be favored with blessings from the Abha kingdom. That this region may become like the all-highest paradise, may develop into a vineyard of God and be transformed into a heavenly orchard and a spiritual rose garden.
من منتظر آنم که نیویورک مبروک گردد و آوازه ثبوت بر عهد و میثاق از آن شهر به آفاق رسد و از هر جهت ممتاز گردد. ملك الملوک نیویورک را مبروک فرما. یاران را دیگر مهربان کن. افکارم روشن کن جانها را مستبشر فرما قوتی آسمانی بخش و تأیید ربانی ده بساطی رحمانی گستر تا آن شهر بها آباد گردد و نیویورک برکت ملکوت ابها یابد و آن سرزمین بهشت برین گردد و باغ الهی شود و بوستان آسمانی گردد و گلشن رحمانی شود.
Ô vang chữ tu chỉ luôn du hết lại án luôn nu hay luôn lì chỉ nông nên là tê can nàng nông nhồi giàu nu nô bê trồng trên suốt là to cổng xa cổng chữ to lúc cổng trồng nó do vì vàng yết cha xa ha cỡ chun vàng bà hạ có là có lúc công luôn bề cho lùi có khó khăn ô vang chữ có giờ tụi mua phui chỉ tăng cho nhân là tên nó ấy giờ cho có lúc phui chỉ lục khá đó mi tu mi nhỏ có chân trên nu nó có cờ tàu trời lại có xa nhẹ vang chữ cụ tụt lu phố tè có giờ tụ mua phui chỉ bí xả lên giờ chót lên bên nông nền cả cho tụt gì ý dạng lấy tròn đồng làจะเต็มมาปังตรงคือยchủ tàuใจก็เตะเล่เตะนางจะรู้อยู่ก็รู้โอวันช่วยนู่นไปสุดเลยตัวหนูยอวางห้าจ่าชายกเกิดก็เตะลูกโคลูกขาท้อก็ฝ่งมองรงรถชัวเล่งฮัดชัวตูเนี่ยหัวหนูกดตาวกลางชากดลูชาเตอร์กดเจ้าก็จะลูกโคขาโมคาก็ท่องดูโอ้จีวันจือเปย์เยอะชาวเยอะวังบาฮาโลโอลาก็อยากตัวมั่วจันทร์จันทร์ช้างตนลาเป้เขาก็จอกก็รู้วิฝัวถ้าปวดใจอย่างนอลูโตเป้จงตูจียันลาเต้นอเอเป้ชุดเลยเยอะเจ้าก็จะโคขานอช่างฮัชเชงมุนก่อนตอดทงลาเต้นูโนกุทอฮาฟีนอทอมอฟีจะลุมมองรงนอจอนเดอกาลุมเบวังบาฮาอลากาลุมเบกุจง
Mi recuerdo de ti, oh mi Dios, apaga mi sed y aquieta mi corazón. Mi alma se deleita en su comunión contigo, como el lactante se deleita en los pechos de tu misericordia, y mi corazón te ansía, como el sediento ansía las vivificantes aguas de tu generosidad. Oh tú, quien eres el Dios de misericordia, en cuya mano está el dominio de todas las cosas. Te doy gracias, oh mi Dios, porque me has permitido recordarte. ¿Qué más fuera del recuerdo de ti puede traer deleite a mi alma o alegría a mi corazón? La comunión contigo me capacita para prescindir del recuerdo de todas tus criaturas, y mi amor por ti me permite resistir el daño que me causan mis opresores. Envía, por tanto, a mis amados, oh mi Dios, lo que anime sus corazones e ilumine sus rostros y deleite sus almas. Tú sabes, oh mi Señor, que su felicidad está en contemplar la exaltación de tu causa y la glorificación de tu palabra. Descubre, por tanto, mi Dios, lo que alegre sus ojos, y ordena para ellos el bien de este mundo y del mundo venidero. Tú eres verdaderamente el Dios de poder, de fuerza y de munificencia.
This historic Second World Congress will now be opened by the representative of the Universal House of Justice, the hand of the cause of God, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá Ruhiyya Khanum.
That's nice. Now I can see you. It's a very wonderful occasion, friends, and a great honor and distinction for each one of us to be present on this historic occasion. I bring you the greetings and the love of the Universal House of Justice and the members of the International Teaching Center, the Baha'i community in Haifa. Some of us are present here, but many more of them are occupied with their duties in the Holy Land. But I'm sure everybody's heart and everybody's prayers are with us today. I think that we cannot underestimate the immense importance of this occasion, not only because it's the centenary of the passing of Baha'u'llah, not only because it is in the city of the Covenant, which is so precious to the Baha'is because of ʻAbdu'l-Bahā's association with this city, but because of the fact that the Baha'i Faith now is not only becoming universally recognized all over the world, we're not only having people in different continents, different countries, different islands and territories who are Baha'is. You couldn't find a place in the world where you could put your finger on the map and there would not be one Baha'i, if not a great many Baha'is. But the fact that we are being turned to by the people of the world, including many times officials, they're beginning to understand that what Baha'u'llah has brought to the world is something that cannot be ignored and may, because they are not Baha'is, may hold the secret to some hope for humanity in the future. And I think that this is one of the great, great privileges and blessings that we have now, that we can see these things happening, that you who are here from so many countries and islands representing your communities in the Baha'i world, that you can go back and witness to what has happened here in New York before the press, before the mayor, before United States officials, a message from the President of the great Republic of the West, and so on. So that we are indeed very, very blessed to be here and very privileged to be alive at this time. I want to read you the message from our beloved Universal House of Justice, addressed to the followers of Baha'u'llah attending the Second World Bahá'í Congress. Dearly loved friends, with eager hopes and thankful hearts, we acclaim the convocation in New York of the Second Bahá'í World Congress on the occasion of the worldwide celebration of the centenary of the inauguration of the Covenant of Bahá'u'lláh. That so wide a diversity of the human race as you represent has assembled at this commemorative event is in itself history-making, as indeed an impressive demonstration of the potency and potential of the covenant as the instrument designed by the Lord of the age for the unification and pacification of the nations and peoples of the earth. We rejoice with exceeding gladness for your coming together in such variegated array in an affirmation of the efficacy of this sacred legacy, a fresh assurance that despite recurrent trials and turmoils, its world-redeeming, world-revolutionizing purpose will ultimately be entirely realized. Our emotions are deeply stirred as we reflect on the remarkable circumstances which heralded the birth of Baha'u'llah's covenant. Melancholy and hopeful images alternatingly flash upon our mental screen. The tragic May night a century ago of the passing of Baha'u'llah, the supreme manifestation of God. The soul-crushing scenes of the grief-stricken many who converged on Badji to pay their respects to his memory. The atmosphere of absolute desolation caused by the loss of one who had been father and incomparable friend to all. But the setting of the sun of Baha gave rise to the appearance of the orb of the covenant. Thus, the majestic figure of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá came to impress itself indelibly upon the consciousness of the faithful, consoling their spirits, brightening their outlook, because in Baha'u'llah's book of the covenant, the Kitabat, this beloved son was appointed his successor and the center of the covenant. Thus was set in motion on the morrow of Baha'u'llah's ascension the divine process that will, during the course of the Baha'i dispensation, guarantee the fulfillment of his principal purpose for mankind, namely the realization of its oneness. The initial momentum of this process was to gather particular force in the West as the acts of the beloved Master dramatically revealed. It was during his epic journey to North America that ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, recently released from imprisonment, impressed upon the early Occidental believers the pivotal importance of the new covenant. And it was in New York City that he chose to disclose to his disciples the special characteristics of that covenant and his true station as its appointed center. The occasion won for this leading city of the Western Hemisphere the surname City of the Covenant. Where else then but this signally blessed metropolis could serve as the fitting venue for the commemoration which has so marvelously brought you together? This Congress is the major occasion during the Holy Year for the evocation of a memory which enables us all to appreciate how, through the dynamic person and peerless office of the center of the covenant, the will of both the Abha beauty and his herald has been translated into visible means for actualizing the unity of mankind and building a world civilization. Consider, for instance, how on the very night in May 1844, when he declared his prophetic mission, the Bab addressed a summons to the peoples of the West that they issue forth from their cities to teach the cause of God. Has that summons not thoroughly been fused with the world-embracing purpose of Baha'u'llah, becoming a shining reality within the framework of the administrative order, the child of the covenant, an order which the Bab anticipated would extol his writings? You have come to New York to reflect on such triumphant realities with due solemnity and spiritual joy. How heartwarming and noteworthy that the proceedings of this momentous gathering will be enhanced by the presence of the three hands of the cause, tried and true upholders of the covenant, chosen by Shoghi Effendi under his authority as the guardian of the faith, appointed in the will and testament of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. We can never forget that by their selfless adherence to duty during the period of their custodianship, following the sudden passing of Shoghi Effendi, the hands of the cause preserved the wholeness of the community of Baha, while at the same time guiding the members of that expanding community to the victorious conclusion of the Guardian's 10-year global crusade. Nor can we cease to appreciate their continuing tireless services in the propagation and protection of our glorious faith. We are particularly pleased that our representative to the Congress is one of these high-ranking officers, the consort and helpmate of our beloved guardian, who herself attained the presence of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá. It was Shoghi Effendi who called for the first World Congress, which jubilantly marked the 100th anniversary of Baha'u'llah's declaration of his mission. With admirable resourcefulness, the hands of the cause planned and executed it. That unforgettable occasion in London some 3 decades ago, coming at the end of the 10-year crusade, affirmed to the Baha'is themselves that the faith at this moment throughout the Bahá'í world, we are engaged in another continental observation for the purpose not only of celebrating the unique history of the Covenant, but also of proclaiming abroad its aims and unifying power. Its unifying power. The Second World Congress, now convened, is the mainspring in the launching of worldwide commemorative activities, which will promulgate the Covenant as the axis of unity for all humankind and broadcast its qualities for reforming human society. Moreover, through these activities and other extended measures, the community at all levels, local, national, continental, and international, will exert immense effort to spread across the planet the name of the world reformer, Baha'u'llah, that hearts may be attracted and minds illumined. But we speak of a proclamation which has more to do with deeds than words. And in this regard, we must everywhere in our world community attain a new awareness of the urgency of the times and of our sacred duties towards the promised one of all ages. A special expectation is therefore invested in you, who are attending this focal event in the city of the Covenant. For these 4 special days of commemoration, may you all strive as never before to appreciate more adequately the life-transforming character and the unific spirit of the Covenant, and to immediately demonstrate this heightened appreciation of the spiritual attitude you show among yourselves. May you do this with the resolve that what you practice towards each other during these few days will henceforth be sustained in your relations with all others elsewhere. May you do this with the resolve that what you practice towards each other during these few days will henceforth be sustained in your relations with others everywhere. Such active resolution will endow the Second World Congress with the radiant power to impress upon the public the incontrovertible fact that the Bahá'í Faith is a world religion worthy of its claims and hence of public recognition. In a tablet to the Baha'is in New York, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá expressed a hope which it is propitious to recall on this opportune occasion. I eagerly anticipate the day, he wrote, when New York will become a blessed spot from which the call to steadfastness in the covenant and testament of God will go forth to every part of the world. Surely, through the auspicious circumstances afforded by this Congress, you will attempt thus to gratify His Spirit in the Bahá'í Kingdom, so that from His retreats on high, you may receive the benediction of His abiding good pleasure and strengthening grace. In our supplications at His blessed shrine, we shall entreat Him graciously to secure and in abundance vouchsafe to the entire community of His dedicated lovers the favors and confirmations of the Lord of the Covenant, the Universal House of Justice.
O Baha'u'llah, O Baha'u'llah, what hast thou done? Beneath the canopy of your presence, we here assembled acknowledge with our lives the truth you proclaimed. O Baha'u'llah, how long have we waited? O Baha'u'llah, by your grace we behold you, Prince of Peace, Ancient of Days, O Promised One of all ages, O Baha'u'llah, what hast thou done? What have they done? You were confined in the darkest pit, chained among thieves and assassins. Your feet were placed in stocks. A chain encased your neck. 2 rows of prisoners, apparelled in what you taught them to sing. God is sufficient unto me. He verily is the all-sufficing, chanted the one. In him let the trusting trust, came in the dungeon the eager reply. O Baha'u'llah, what has God done? In the stench-filled gloom, you turned your face and beheld a maiden suspended in the air. Her finger pointed to your head. New creation rejoiced in your soul, O prisoner in chains. Through you, the maiden addressed us. By God, this is the best beloved of the worlds.
Go
O Baha'u'llah, where was the Spirit of God leading? Baghdad, in its grief, became the city of your love, O exiled one. Baghdad, glowing with the flame of your love, flowing with the tears of your pain, its waters burning. Ferried across the river to the Rezvan garden, as Prince of Glory you came, moving majestically in the utmost joy. The fragrance of roses greeted you as nightingales sang.
Gathered now at the mystic hour in the garden of Rezvan, circling around his blessed tent in the garden of Rezvan, and the nightingales sing, and the souls are on fire, as the crimson-colored ark sets sail in the presence of the best beloved of the world, in the garden of Rezvan. The fragrance of the rose is strong in the garden of Rezvan. The friends are silent, struck with awe in the garden of Rezvan, as the Ancient of Days lifts a myriad veils of light, and the new creation sings with joy in the presence of the best beloved of the world, in the garden of Rezvan. Lord of names ascends his throne in the 12 days of Rezvan. Approach him now and quaff your fill in the garden of Rezvan. Everlasting life from the hands of his grace, bestowed upon all humankind in the presence of the best beloved of the world, in the garden of Rezvan.
O Baha'u'llah, what hast thou done? Step by exiled step, you followed the path of your Lord. Kings at your command let fall their scepters, their kingdoms vanquished in the fire of your decree. O kings of the earth, you proclaimed, He who is the sovereign Lord of all is come. The kingdom is God's, the omnipotent protector, the self-subsisting. From the heaven of your revelation, divine justice descended to subdue the world, God's kingdom on earth. Your promised kingdom come, the maid of heaven, now clad in white, bade you hasten to your other dominions. Silently and swiftly you ascended, leaving us here in grief, in joy, in wonder at what you have done. May we remember your days during our days, O best beloved, O royal falcon, King of glory, O Baha'u'llah.
O Baha'u'llah.
all of us in this gathering are poignantly aware that the achievements we celebrate have in considerable part been won by the sacrifices of our fellow believers in Iran. Sacrifices of well-being, of opportunity, of education, of possessions, of life itself. If there is one unwavering message that has come out of Iran over the past terrible 13 years, it is this: that we must not, for 1 minute, allow any grief to shadow the Baha'i world's joy over the breathtaking victories that these sacrifices have purchased. Today, this message of loving contentment with the will of God comes to us in the form of a magnificent gift of flowers sent to the Congress from the friends in the cradle of the faith. These flowers will remain prominently on display throughout the World Congress. Mr. David Hoffman, former member of the Universal House of Justice, will now speak about Baha'u'llah, the promised one of all ages.
ʻAbdu'l-Bahá Ruhi Kanu, beloved hands of the cause, Janabi Furutan, Janabi Varga. Beloved friends, what a wonderful occasion this is. Make no mistake about it, it's an historic event that will go down in the annals of mankind's history. The fact that the first officer of this great city should have attended and proclaimed today, Bahá'í World Congress Day, is a potent evidence of the power of Baha'u'llah's covenant to accomplish his purpose on the planet. This great city, one of the greatest capitals of the world, within 100 years of the ascension of Baha'u'llah, has recognized his faith as a world faith, and you heard his own remarks. Our religion, dear friends, is a religion of superlatives. It is not just another revelation in the whole series of successive revelations educating mankind and taking him on to his ultimate destiny. It is the most great revelation at the most great time in history. Everything in the Baha'i revelation is of the most great. Think of it, we have two manifestations of God to proclaim it. It was the Bab himself who prepared the way for Baha'u'llah by releasing into the world that great spiritual force which can only come from a manifestation of God, and which changed that bad old, sad old, crystallized, nasty old world of tyranny and oppression and poverty, prejudice, which culminating befittingly, as our own Dr. Esselmont quoted from Carlyle, in the French Revolution. That event, right at the end of the 18th century, was the trumpet blast for the new age of mankind, the day of God, when God's great bounties are poured out in full measure upon the entire human race. It is to the Bab that we owe the explanation of this wonderful covenant which shall not be broken, and this great day which shall not be followed by night. It was the Bab who explained to us that daytime is when the manifestation of God is on earth, that's when the sun is shining. Nighttime is the period between the ascension of a manifestation of God and the appearance of the next one. So that after the crucifixion of Christ, until the year 622, that was a nighttime in human life. And from the ascension of Muhammad until the appearance of the Bab, 1200 years and more was a nighttime in which the great civilization of Islam rose and declined. The civilization of Christendom came out of its dark ages and rose and declined to the end of the 18th century. And when mankind entered this period of chaos and confusion and terrorism and violence and breakdown of all the sanctions and subtleties and laws of human existence, Make no mistake, dear friends, it is the revelation of Baha'u'llah which has caused this great confusion and chaos in the world. You may document that from his letter to Queen Victoria. The world's equilibrium hath been upset through the vibrating influence of this this new world order. Mankind's ordered life hath been revolutionized through the agency of this unique, this wondrous system, the like of which mortal eyes have never witnessed. The like of which mortal eyes have never witnessed and have not yet seen it. We are hopeful of the future. We know that it's going to be wonderful, but no one has experienced it yet. It is entire speculation and resting upon the promises of God. The Bab released into the human aura, that spiritual world in which we live and are unconscious of generally. He released the remaining 25 letters of knowledge. You know there are 27 letters of knowledge, and until the time of the Bab, God had only given us 2 of them. And it was the Bab who released the remaining 25 and therefore sparked off and sponsored that explosion of knowledge and invention and exploration and scientific investigation and social reform which took place in the 19th century. I ask you to think of the tremendous difference between the time of Baha'u'llah and the Bab and today. Baha'u'llah never rode on a train. He never rode in a motor car. I'm fairly certain he never pressed a switch to turn on light. His travels during those appalling banishments were done on horseback or on foot, from Tehran to Baghdad, and on that 1,000-mile journey across the plains of Ottoman Turkish Empire to Constantinople, on foot and by horseback. It is true that from Gallipoli to Egypt and Haifa, he traveled by steamer. But at that time, steam was just beginning to win its battle over wind. But he still sailed from Haifa to the most great prison in a sailing boat. The technical revolution which took place was due to this new power of mankind's intellect and invention to discover all the secrets of the material universe. But my friends, the social condition of the time was even worse. At the beginning of the 19th century, such concepts as world order or peace or brotherhood of man were either in the realm of science fiction or poetry. And that went on into the 20th century when people like H.G. Wells and Bergson and other Jules Verne and other writers of the early 20th century foresaw or were generally considered as seers when they talked about the brotherhood of man. But you think, when Baha'u'llah was born in 1817 in Europe, the Western world, it was if a poor man stole a loaf of bread, he could be hanged and his body exposed on a gibbet on a hill. If a poor woman couldn't pay the rent, she was deported to one of the great penal colonies, either of Australia or the southern states of America. The middle of the century, although it was lit up by a host of wonderful reformers, Lincoln, Wilberforce, Shaftesbury, Fry, Howard of penal reform, and beginnings of factory acts, was not adequate to give mankind the vision of a new world, that the exploration of the planet, the inventions of technique and so forth, they gave mankind greater command over the sources and the powers of nature. Instead of relying only on muscle power or wind power, at last technical energy was available to mankind. But you consider, even later, by the time Baha'u'llah was beginning to make his proclamation, around the late 1860s and early 70s, when he addressed the kings and rulers and religious leaders of mankind, even by then, his teachings were anathema. The oneness of mankind, hopeless. People didn't want it. Equality of women, no, poor creatures, we can't let them have the same stuff as men. It was an impossible program which he offered to mankind. They rejected it or ignored it, and as you know, as a result, the present chaos and confusion overtook the entire human race when the leaders had thought they were well on the way to establishing their own particular brand of world order or peace under the sovereignty and dominion of one particular race, perhaps. But this chaos and this confusion, which Baha'u'llah himself foresaw and foretold again in that wonderful letter to Queen Victoria, the signs of impending convulsions and chaos can now be discerned, and much as the prevailing order appears to be lamentably defective, well, that bad old moribund old order has gone, and we are now in this torrential discord with Baha'u'llah there, riding the whirlwind and directing the storm. There is no doubt of the outcome, my friends. But this brings me to another point about the Covenant of Baha'u'llah. There are two events simultaneous and almost synonymous. The ascension of Baha'u'llah and the inception of his covenant take place exactly at the same times. This is why there was never a hiatus, why the day was never to be followed by night, because daytime is when the sun is shining. Nighttime is when we depend on the moon and the stars, and the institutions and the leaders of the dispensations. Not so in this most great dispensation. The Covenant of Baha'u'llah is in effect the extension of himself and his power and his authority right through the dispensation to guide and maintain and order the establishment and pursuit of God's kingdom on the planet. The center of that covenant, ʻAbdu'l-Bahá, has produced, again, the most great document, the greatest document the human race has ever seen as a document. Not only is it sacred text, but the will and testament of ʻAbdu'l-Bahá is undoubtedly the greatest document that the human race will ever produce, for it is the very charter of God's own kingdom. Now, friends, in that soul-stirring message from the Universal House of Justice, you heard them speak of the urgency of the times. It seems that there are a great many urgencies facing the human race today and facing the Baha'i community too. I feel we ought to dwell on two of those urgencies. The one is the one affecting the whole of mankind, and inevitably, therefore, the Baha'i community, for never forget, we are part of the human race. We have to go through whatever the human race has to go through. We shall be affected by it and come out to the same glorious future as they will. That great challenge for mankind is now to become mature. The human race has come of age, and it has been given through the most great revelation of Baha'u'llah all the guidance, the powers, the knowledge, the vision which it needs to emerge, to transform from youth to maturity. This is the greatest crisis in any organic life. That is when in individual human beings or in animals or trees, they become what they're going to be for the rest of their lives. And now is the time when the human race has to decide and become what it is going to be for the rest of its history on the planet. Thank God it is not left to us to decide any of those things. But by serving the revelation of Baha'u'llah and spreading the knowledge of his power, his majesty, his glory, and his love into every individual human heart, we may serve that purpose. Now, this particular urgency of the human race to become mature is closely related to the establishment of the lesser peace. Our beloved guardian, on whom we could speak for ages and ages and never exhaust the wonders of his ministry, he was the one who expounded the revelation to us and showed us two processes going on within the Baha'i community, coincidental with that great process of coming of age of the human race. These two processes, my friends, in our Baha'i community are the maturation of the local and spiritual assemblies and the completion of the capital of God's kingdom on his holy mountain in Mount Carmel and the neighborhood of the plain of Akka. We are responsible for two of those processes which are running at the same simultaneous. They are not parallel lines. They come to a point, they converge at that particular point when the transformation is eventually made. Now, if we, on our part, do not keep up with the world's process towards the lesser peace, we could well delay the achievement of that tremendous, wonderful moment in human history when war will be abandoned, because these three processes are running together to converge at the end of this century. To those two processes within the Baha'i community, the House of Justice has added one more, which is entry by troops, and it's that about which I wish to speak now. All of us, every single one of us attending this magnificent Congress, are beatified by our presence here, by the very fact of our attendance and of our coming. And we can visualize in the remote distances of time throughout the centuries and the millennia, we can imagine our descendants of those days congratulating each other, being proud, thankful to God when they say, one of my ancestors attended that Second World Congress in the city of the Covenant. Think of that, my friends. But that's not enough. If they cannot go on to say, and attendance at that conference made such a transformation in their lives that they went out and conquered the world for Baha'u'llah through the power imbued into them at that great event when the King of Kings This is the significance of our great conference, friends, that we, the Baha'i world community, shall be now so transformed that mankind will never again be ignorant or heedless of the message of Baha'u'llah. We have the power to be the leaven in that lump which now needs energizing and spiritualizing, and we are the only ones who have this knowledge. But now, my friends, that brings me to a more spiritualized, deeper concept. Mankind today is starving for spiritual food, is dying of thirst. In the innermost private life of every man, woman, and child on the planet, there is this inner frustration, this inner lack, this hunger, this yearning for something better than what the world is offering to it today or what they can discover in the world. When all the activities of mankind turn against him, his economics doesn't feed, clothe, and shelter him, his religion doesn't inspire him to kindliness and goodwill, his politics are unmentionable, his recreations are debased, nothing of the traditional and age-old activities of mankind, which at certain times in history, under the guidance of a manifestation of God, have risen to wonderful heights within the limitations of their ages. Nothing today gratifies this longing, this yearning in the individual human soul, frankly, for the love of God. Therefore, this is our opportunity, for we know the source of that divine love. Baha'u'llah, the Prince of Peace, the King of Love. Lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lift up, ye everlasting doors, was the cry of one of the great prophets of Israel. And the King of Glory shall come in. Now let us from this great Congress send a signal to the rest of humanity. Lift up your heads, O peoples of the world, and listen and hear the message of your Lord, your Creator, who loves you, who wants you to be happy and joyful and in a blissful condition of human felicity and brotherhood and peace on earth. This is the message of Baha'u'llah. It is easy for us now, having been educated chiefly by our beloved guardian, to know how the world system is to operate and to attend our 19-day feasts and to encourage our local assemblies. But this is not going to, the knowledge of that is not going to win hearts for Baha'u'llah. It might attract a number of philosophically minded people or economists and others, but it is only this flame of the love of God which burns in our hearts with which we can light the unlighted candle in other people's hearts. Let them know that Baha'u'llah is their haven in distress, their shield and shelter in their woe, their hope and refuge in his need, their companion in darkness and the loving friend in their solitude. This is Baha'u'llah for mankind, dear friends. Recall that wonderful song of the great Isaiah, anticipating the coming of the Great One in the great day of God, when all his bounties would be poured out upon mankind. He shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father. And of his judgment and kingdom there shall be no end, and he shall reign forever and ever. That is Baha'u'llah, my friends. Baha'u'llah, 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 Ya Baha'u'llah.
Today, humanity, in all its diversity, is responding to the opportunity which the monarchs of the 19th century so tragically missed. The gathering in this room is really a window on that response. It is a window on a Baha'i community that likely already represents the most diverse and widespread organized body of people on our planet. Who are we? We are members of over 2,000 races, tribes and nations of the earth. We are the people of the world, the people of Baha.
We are the Aba, the Zulu, the Acholi, the Zapotec. We are from Angola, Algeria, Zambia. We are Colombians, Aitsaoum, French, Tangali, Finns, Ojibwa, Greek. We are the Aymara, the Mayans, the Dutch, the Yoruba, the Cree, the Inuit. We are from Tuvalu, Spain, Luxembourg, Argentina, Zimbabwe, Suriname.
We are the Poles, the Greenlanders, the Pakistanis, the Bank Islanders, the Maori, the Andangme. We are Mexican, Apache, Comorian, Swedes, Tigray. We are from Botswana, South Africa, Papua New Guinea, Equatorial Guinea, Guinea-Bissau, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Ireland, Uzbekistan, Canada.
We are Germans, Sara, Guaymi, Somalis, Ekoi, Lebanese. We are the Babwa, the Babilis, the Tlingit, the people of Cameroon, the Oromo, the Haida, the Balante. We are Panamanians, Iroquois, Vietnamese, English. We are from Sikkim, Transkei, Andaman and Nicobar Islands, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, St. Kitts and Nevis, Honduras, New Caledonia and the Loyalty Islands, Rwanda, Vanuatu.
We are the Latvians, the Lakota, the Arapaho, the Yami, the Yo, the Bribri. We are Australian, Torres Strait Islanders, Salish, Pygmies, Nepalese, Mauritanians. We are from the Bahamas, Scotland, Argentina, Belize, Hungary, Kiribati, the United Arab Emirates. We are the Welsh, Bapedi, the Quechua, the Bolivians, the Cook Islanders, the Austrians.
We are the Brazilians, the Kru, the Blackfoot, the Gurage, Sidama. We are from Uganda, Uruguay, Barbados, Botswana, the Federated States of Micronesia, Bophuthatswana. We are from the Cayman Islands, the Canary Islands, the Fiji Islands, Jamaica, Egypt, Chile, Brunei. We are Bushmen, Gon, Aboriginals, Cape Verdeans, Italians.
We are from Qatar, Cambodia, Hawaii, Burkina Faso, Liberia, Morocco, the Central African Republic, Burundi. We are the Maasai, the Basque, the Croatians, the Japanese, the Guyanese. We are Gadung, Ethiopians, East Leeward Islanders, East Caroline Islanders. We are Tanzanian, Tongan, Korean, Turkish, Moldovan, Nigerian.
We are Siberian, Peruvian, Ute, Southern Ute, Indian, Indonesian. We are from Hong Kong, Tunisia, the Dominican Republic, Dominica, the United States, New Zealand, Ukraine. We are the Laotians, the Malawis, the Hausa, the Tserma, the Norwegians, the Portuguese, the Kenyans.
We are from Lesotho, Iceland, Niger, Macau, Gabon, Mauritius, Monaco, Côte d'Ivoire, the Congo. We are Sri Lankan, Namibian, Puerto Rican, Cuban, Samoan, Western Samoan, St. Lucian. We are the Beja, the Costa Rican, the Afrikaners, the Javanese, the Swiss, the Thai.
We are from Tibet, Mongolia, Sierra Leone, Reunion, Ghana, Gambia, Seychelles, Trinidad and Tobago, Mali, Chad, Northern Ireland. We are Comanche, Macaw, Cherokee, Eritrean, Igbo, Egyptian, We are the Malaysians, the Iraqi, the Haitian, the Navajo, the Hopi, the Taylor.
We are from the Virgin Islands, the Western Caroline Islands, Swaziland, Myanmar, Paraguay, Turkmenistan, Yunama, Zaire, Venezuela, Nicaragua, Aruba. We are Chinese, Bemba, Yemeni, Filipino. We are the Tucano, Guarani, the Shilluk.
We are from Bahrain, Bangladesh, Madagascar, Lithuania, San Marino, São Tomé e Príncipe, Saudi Arabia, Senegal. We are the Iglala, the Cheyenne, the Solomon and Cook Islanders. We are Siwi, Naga, Kurds, Crow, Libyan, Czechoslovakian, the people of Afghanistan.
We are from Bhutan, Armenia, Togo, Moldavia, Liechtenstein, Kyrgyzstan, Slovenia. We are Estonian, Guatemalan, Ecuadorian, Rotuman, Danes, Lenacal. We are from Malta, Antigua y Barbuda, Cyprus, Oman, Singapore, Senegal, the Sudan.
We are from Grenada, Djibouti, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Port Ory, Benin, Belarus, Romania, Kuwait, Siskai, we're Belgian, Kazi, Yuka, Azerbaijani, Persian, Albanian, Syrian, Marshall Islanders.
We are the North Americans,
The South Americans,
The Asians,
The Australasians,
the Europeans.
the Africans.
We are the people of the world.
All praise, O my God, be to thee, who art the source of all glory and majesty, of greatness and honor, of sovereignty and dominion, of loftiness and grace, of awe and power. Whomsoever thou willest, thou causest to draw nigh unto thy most great ocean, and on whomsoever thou desirest, thou conferrest the honor of recognizing thy most ancient name, of all who are in heaven and on earth. None can withstand the operation of thy sovereign will. From all eternity, thou didst rule the entire creation, and thou wilt continue forevermore to exercise thy dominion over all created things. There is none other God but thee, the Almighty, the most exalted, the all-powerful, the all-wise. Illumine, O Lord, the faces of thy servants, that they may behold thee, and cleanse their hearts, that they may turn unto the court of thy heavenly favors, and recognize him who is the manifestation of self and the dayspring of thine essence. Verily, thou art the Lord of all worlds. There is no God but thee, the unconstrained, the all-subduing.
Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our program. Thank you very much.